Napoleon said of China, "Let China sleep, for when she wakes, she will shake the world." We've had 3 China shocks since the end of history. That is, since the end of the Cold War. The first shock is the rapid and relentless rise of China, especially since its entry into WTO. Economically, first for China, because it brought about great transformation, and it also had great geopolitical and geoeconomic implications for the rest of the world. I think the United States and Europe never foresaw what the rise of China would mean in terms of China being the factory of the world. It was good for everybody until it wasn't good for everybody. Napoleon said of China, "Let China sleep, for when she wakes, she will shake the world." And Lee Kuan Yew, in fact, I looked at one of his old tapes in 1980 at a Fullerton Square rally, said, of China, and this is 1980, 2 years after China's entry into the world, the 4 modernizations, etc., and Deng Xiaoping's visit to Singapore. He saw what was happening in Shenzhen, and he said, "Look at Shenzhen, what the Chinese are doing. Just watch it grow." Then he also said in the same speech, China is today buying Boeings from the United States and Tridents from Britain. In 2 to 3 generations, China will be building its own planes. One generation is about 25 years or 20 years. So in 40, 50 years, China will be building its own plane. Absolutely correct. You've just seen the C919 being unveiled. So that is the China shock. But let me put it again in another way, the first shock. Do you know in 1980, that's 2 years just after modernization, so it doesn't count, China is finding its way through, its share of the world GDP was 2.7%. In 2001, I take it 1 year after WTO, its share of the world economy was 3.9%. United States was 31.3%, Europe 21.3%, Japan 13.9%. In 2023, and this includes some of the problems China has been going through, China's share of the world economy was 16.9%. America, from 31% in 2001, has become, in 2023, 26.1%. Europe is 17.5%, dropped also, and Japan is 4% of the world's economy. China and Europe as a whole, China as a single economy, vies for second place as share of the world economy, and in recent years, because of what's happening in China with the difficulties, I think its share of the world economy is dropped some. So United States is sitting pretty at about 25, 26%. So that's what it means. It's that shock from 2.7% in 1980 to now about 17% of the world economy. There are other figures I can give you, the share of the trading economy, but I don't have time. The second shock that China delivered was that China's rise triggered an intense competition between the United States and China, not seen since the end of the Cold War. Clearly, it is about dominance in the world order. First, it began as a trade war, then it was a technology war, military competition and so on. As George Yeo said, very soon it'll be a hot war, but it's different wars. But it's about dominance in the world system. And it is about values, and it is about soft power. And recently, in the last year or so, it's been more clear who sets the rules of the world order. Now, this is structural. And so this rivalry, this competition will not end anytime soon. Those who say China should have stuck to peaceful rise, I say are wrong. Because even if they said, China said, we believe in peaceful rise, nobody will believe China. In fact, when I was in the United States in the 1990s, early 2000s, Americans said to me, oh yeah, they say peaceful rise, this is stage one. Wait till China gets stronger. Will they still stick to peaceful rise? So there's no point, you know. They can't hide the light under the bushel. They cannot say they believe in peaceful rise. Shock number 3 is the rapid slide and difficulties of the Chinese economy. We've seen China grow so rapidly. So in the last few years, when we saw China's economy spluttering, doing so badly, that's a shock too. Goodness, is this China? And in America, there are analysts who say, China peak, China peak. China is going to slide and go down from now on. So what is the real China? So this is the third shock that China has developed, that it can rise so fast and suddenly things seem to unravel so quickly. And on top of it, we hear about its declining population and the aging population. Mind you, the whole world is aging and the whole world is declining. You know, demographers said in 2080, world's population would have peaked. All of us would have declining populations. So it's not just China with a declining population, but I think the declining population, aging population, with the slowing economy presents challenges for investors and for China. So how do you read China? Is it completely failing? If you read Financial Times, New York Times these days, there's no good news that comes out of China. But let me tell you that there are some reports which very few pick up, and when they do, it just floats away. And that is that first-tier cities in China are in trouble. Second, third, fourth, fifth-tier cities in China are doing quite okay. You know, not all cities, but many of the cities are doing okay. Now, I have some data from Think China, which is the Bao's publication on China. And it shows that retail sales in these second, third tier cities are rising, you know. Not all, but most of them. If you take 36 cities, 3 are falling behind, the rest are going up. Tier 2, Tier 3. I have the figures here. The reference, if you want, is 9th of September 2024 for scholars here. That's your reference, Think China. Look up the data, you know. And also, the growth is not bad. And further, if you say, oh, Think China, Lianhe is pro-China, let me cite you Economist data. The Economist on June 6, 2024, had an issue which was, you know, move over Beijing, you know, watch out for the second and third tier cities. But you see, it came as one article and nobody put things together. But I have no time, Danny. I just came across this yesterday and I was too lazy to put it into a slide, you know. But the economies of the second and third tier cities are generally, the figures show they are growing. Hefei, Changsha, Chongqing, they all are near 7.78% growth in these cities. Hefei, Changsha, Chongqing, Nanjing is like 6.5, Shenzhen, okay? But Beijing and Shanghai, Guangzhou, is below the national average. Not Guangdong, but Beijing and Shanghai. And the population changes. Population is growing in Chengdu, Xi'an, Wuhan, Changsha, Hefei, Nanjing, Hangzhou, Shenzhen, so on. Beijing losing population, Chongqing kind of stopped, and Shanghai just 0.06. So things are moving to the second, third tier cities, some movement there. And it makes sense because China's now growth model emphasizes advanced manufacturing and the green economy. And a lot of this is going out to the second and third tier cities, so that's where people are going. Also, the Think China article says that People are spending in the second and third tier cities because in tier one, all the property, tier one cities, money is tied up in property. And it's so high, then it collapsed. And you have your tech entrepreneurship, the tech talent, financial talent, etc. They are so tied up. And all these sad stories, Tanping and so on, people are going to the first-tier cities and getting most of the feedback there. But this doesn't mean China is sort of booming like that. And some skeptics say, can the advanced manufacturing, AI, etc., and green economy replace or create the same growth as the infrastructure, property, infrastructure, etc. of the past, e-commerce? Probably not. So it's slowing down a bit, but it's not flat and not growing. This is China. So what I'm trying to say is that there is another narrative, and we should look at this. China is not a hopeless case, and it's changing. Clearly, the model is changing. So I do not know what will come at the end of it. I better wind up soon because I'm exceeding my time. So the question is, 1, will China recover? 2, if China's economy is weakening, does that lighten the competition between the United States and China? I, for one, don't think so, because there are some people saying in the US, well, if it's down, why don't you put it out, So you strengthen and put China 5-10 years behind. So the question is, are we moving to a decoupled world? Is this going to be a Cold War? I'll leave Selina to talk about that. But I think we have to remember, I have always said the United States is a resilient country. Don't underestimate the United States. In the same way, I will say China is a resilient country. Don't underestimate China. And when China's growth picks up again, you will find people flocking back to Hong Kong and flocking back to China because the world, Europe and China and the United States does not want to miss out on a piece of the action. So, what is the role of small and medium-sized states in this contentious time? I would say we can do nothing if the United States does not themselves see that it is not in their interest to go to war. If the United States and China feel it is not in their interest to go to war, small states, medium-sized states can do something. And we are all trying. Building bridges, creating forums for Track 2 conferences, and there's a lot of that going on now. And since the San Francisco summit, Americans say there's a floor put to how low the relationship can fall. You ask Americans, they say, relationship has stabilized. I've spoken to the Chinese counterparts, and they say, relationship has stabilized. I think they hope it will stabilize, My last point is that whilst we can build a bridge, you are seeing a number of countries emerging, what I call countries that are entering a third space. India is one of them. And Indonesia, I think Singapore tries, where you want to have good relationships all around. You can have alignment. India has alignment on the Quad Indo-Pacific strategy, but it is not exclusive. It still has a relationship with Russia. So this third space, when it grows, I think will help to blunt the rivalry between the two sides. Thank you.
What do you guys think? Do you have anything to add on top of this conversation? Please leave your comment below. We would love to hear from you.
Thank you for making it this far. If you like this video, you might want to share it with a like-minded friend. Thank you, and as always, stay blessed.